Little girl Sarah pays last tribute to Hulk Hogan, a heartfelt goodbye to a legend. 7-year-old Sarah from Augusta, Georgia, captured the hearts of millions when she stepped forward to deliver an unforgettable farewell to her hero, Hulk Hogan. In this powerful, emotional tribute, Sarah's voice echoes through the WWE universe, reminding us why Hulkamania was never just about wrestling, but about belief, courage, and love. This isn't just a goodbye. It's a passing of the torch. From the streets of Augusta to the bright lights of WWE, this is the story of how a little girl helped the world remember a legend. Her name is Sarah Thompson. She's just 7 years old. Bright-eyed, soft-spoken, and still small enough that her wrestling shirts hang like dresses over her tiny frame. She lives in Augusta, Georgia, quiet suburb, tree-lined streets, and a place where Southern pride still echoes through the local wrestling halls. It's the same city where another name once echoed louder than any bell. Hulk Hogan. Born Terry Bollea, the larger-than-life icon may have long since traded Georgia's gentle breezes for the bright lights of global stardom, but to Sarah, he never really left. Not her heart. Not her home. And not her dreams. You see, Sarah doesn't have a memory of a world without Hulk Hogan. Her father, a die-hard wrestling fan, introduced her to WWE not through current stars or trending feuds, but through dusty VHS tapes, classic pay-per-view reruns, and golden memories that lit up their living room. She would sit cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide, as the screen came alive with the unmistakable entrance theme. She didn't know the man, not personally. But in her heart, Hulk Hogan was family. And now, he's gone. Word of Hulk Hogan's passing swept across the world like a shockwave. Wrestling forums crashed. WWE Network ran tribute reels on loop. Icons old and new shared tearful reflections. But none carried the raw, untouched sincerity that would pour from a child named Sarah, standing just outside the funeral hall in a yellow feather boa, clutching a hand-drawn card that read, "Thank you for making me brave." Sarah wasn't supposed to speak. Not officially. The funeral ceremony, held in Tampa, was by invitation only, tightly guarded, media-filtered, high-profile guests only. Ric Flair. Triple H, John Cena. Legends paid their respects in designer suits and subdued applause. But outside those ornate doors, in the parking lot beneath an overcast Florida sky, something real was happening. Sarah, unaware of cameras or protocol, turned to her dad and whispered, "Can I say something to him?" Her father knelt, brushed her hair back gently, and nodded. A small crowd gathered. Quiet murmurs gave way to stillness as Sarah stepped onto the edge of a raised flower planter. Her voice, fragile but sure, carried into the silence. She wasn't reading from a paper. She wasn't coached. Her tribute came straight from the part of the soul that still believes in heroes. "Hulk Hogan," she began, voice trembling, "you made me believe I could be strong. I used to be scared at school. I didn't like going alone. But I'd wear my Hulkamania shirt, and it made me feel like nobody could beat me." Her eyes welled up. "Thank you for being my superhero." In a world so cynical, so overrun with headlines and hashtags, that moment cut through like sunlight through clouds. And as her voice faded, the crowd remained frozen, not out of politeness, but reverence. This wasn't a sound bite. This was a goodbye that mattered. But to truly understand why her words carried so much weight, we must first understand the man she was saying goodbye to. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was an era. The mustache, the bandana, the rippling yellow shirt, he was a cartoon come to life, a modern gladiator who made kids believe in power and parents believe in charisma. Born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, Terry Eugene Bollea began as a simple bass guitarist playing in local bands. But the spotlight was always destined to be his. When he first stepped into the squared circle in the late 1970s, the world didn't know what hit it. By the early 1980s, Hulkamania wasn't just a gimmick, it was a cultural tsunami. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. That was the creed. And to millions of children across the country, Sarah's father among them, it wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a philosophy. Hogan transcended wrestling. He was everywhere. Cartoons. Action figures. Lunchboxes. Talk shows. His matches weren't just about pinfalls, they were morality plays, where good conquered evil and justice wore red and yellow tights. From body-slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 to feuding with the Macho Man Randy Savage, to reinventing himself in the NWO black and white of WCW's Monday Nitro era, Hogan was a chameleon of spectacle. He turned booze into buzz. He turned nostalgia into relevance. And most importantly, he never stopped performing for the people. But even legends are mortal. In the years leading up to his passing, Hogan faced his share of controversies, injuries, and moments of retreat from the spotlight. Age humbled him. Scandal shadowed him. And yet, even in silence, his shadow loomed large over WWE. Fans whispered his name. Children wore his shirts. And in households like Sarah's, where old tapes still rewound and played on rainy days, Hulk Hogan was alive as ever. To Sarah, he was the man who taught her not to be afraid of bullies. Who showed her that even when people say you're small, you can tear your shirt open and roar back at the world. And when she faced taunts at school for wearing her dad's vintage wrestling shirts, she remembered Hogan flexing in front of jeering crowds, smiling through it all. That became her armor. Her tribute, though short, echoed the real magic of Hulk Hogan's career. It wasn't just about titles. It wasn't about scripted feuds or corporate legacies. It was about connection. Human, unfiltered connection. He didn't wrestle for approval. He wrestled to be remembered. And he was. As the news of Sarah's words spread, WWE cameras arrived quietly the next day. They didn't prompt her. They didn't script a segment. They just captured her kneeling at the base of a floral wreath, a single yellow rose in her hand. The footage went viral before it was even edited. #ThankYouHogan began trending. Grown men wiped tears watching her video. Superstars reposted her words, calling her the purest heart in wrestling. And yet, Sarah didn't know any of that. She just wanted to say goodbye. Wrestling, at its core, is about storytelling. It's about heroes and villains, triumph and betrayal, pain and glory. Hulk Hogan embodied that paradox more than anyone else. He was once the man kids cheered and critics jeered. He rose, he fell, he reinvented. But in that final chapter, as the tributes rolled in, none shone brighter than the one given by a 7-year-old girl with a crayon-drawn card and a heart full of courage. As Sarah returned home to Augusta, something had changed in her. She was quieter that night. She asked her dad to play one last Hogan match before bed. WrestleMania 6, Hogan vs. The Ultimate Warrior. She didn't cheer this time. She just watched. And when Hogan handed over the belt in the match's emotional end, Sarah whispered, "He still won." Her father smiled and nodded. "Yeah, baby. He always will." Outside, the Georgia air was warm. Fireflies lit up the backyard. But inside that small house, on a modest couch stained with years of snack-time wrestling marathons, history had been passed down, not by blood, but by love. Sarah would grow up one day. She would probably move on to new idols. New heroes. But somewhere in her heart, the sound of Hulk Hogan's entrance theme would always live. The roar of the crowd. The pump of the arms. The promise that courage beats fear every single time. And that's what Hulk Hogan gave the world. Not just leg drops or championship belts. He gave them Sarah. He gave them all of us. The days after the funeral felt quiet, but not empty. Sarah returned to her school in Augusta, carrying a story her classmates couldn't quite understand. Some had heard of Hulk Hogan, mostly from their parents. Others hadn't. But Sarah didn't try to convince anyone. She simply drew pictures in her notebook. One of a man with a bandana and a thick mustache, standing tall in the ring. Another of herself, tiny, but brave, standing right beside him. The teacher paused when she saw them. "Who's that?" she asked gently. "My hero," Sarah replied. In the days that followed, that tribute would echo far beyond what Sarah could comprehend. WWE aired her moment during a Raw commercial break. Not as an angle. Not as part of a storyline. Just a black screen fading into a clip of a little girl, voice trembling, whispering goodbye to the immortal one. No lights. No pyro. Just heart. Fans at arenas across the country began holding signs with her name on them, "For Sarah." "For Hogan." Superstars tweeted about her bravery. And in a move that stunned even longtime fans, WWE announced a new segment, The Heart of the Hulkamaniacs. A tribute to the fans, especially the youngest ones, who carried the flame of Hulkamania forward. Sarah had become something more than just a grieving child. She became the living echo of why Hulk Hogan mattered. In a world where icons are measured by social metrics and box office stats, Sarah's tribute reminded everyone of the one thing that can't be calculated: impact. And what an impact Hogan had. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Hulk Hogan wasn't just the face of wrestling, he was the face of American entertainment. His matches drew millions. His charisma was unmatched. But perhaps more significantly, he made wrestling a place where children like Sarah could dream. The ring wasn't just ropes and canvas, it was a stage for the impossible. Hulk Hogan didn't just win matches. He battled giants, crushed villains, and stood tall even when the odds screamed otherwise. In 1984, he defeated the Iron Sheik to win his first WWF championship, launching what would become the era of Hulkamania. It was more than a brand. It was a movement. Kids across America were flexing in front of mirrors, tearing their shirts, and mimicking his famous leg drop in living rooms. He told them to take their vitamins. To say their prayers. To believe in themselves. And they did. He wasn't flawless. And he never pretended to be. Hogan was human. And as time passed, so too did the innocence of those early years. Scandals came. Relationships strained. The media grew harsher. But through it all, he remained the immortal. Because immortality in wrestling isn't about perfection. It's about staying etched in the hearts of fans who needed you at their darkest hour. Sarah's father remembered one such time. He told her the story days after the funeral, when she curled into his lap, confused by why it all still hurt. "When I was your age," he whispered, "I had to get a surgery on my knee. I was scared. I didn't want to go. But I brought my Hulk Hogan action figure with me. I kept it in my pocket. I told the doctors I had my protector with me. And you know what? I wasn't scared anymore." Sarah looked up at him, eyes wide. "That's what he does," her father said. "He makes you feel strong. Even when you're not." In that moment, Sarah smiled. Not the kind of smile that forgets grief. But the kind that holds on to love. That's what Hulk Hogan meant to people. He didn't erase pain. He gave it purpose. In the months after the funeral, Sarah's tribute continued to ripple. Local news stations in Georgia did segments on her moment. The mayor of Augusta sent her a handwritten letter thanking her for reminding the city of one of its proudest sons. And then, quietly, without fanfare, a letter arrived in Sarah's mailbox. The handwriting was shaky, old. But the words were heavy with grace. It was from Linda Hogan, Hulk's ex-wife and lifelong supporter. "Dear Sarah," it read, "your words reminded me why Terry did what he did. He loved the fans. He loved the kids. He would have been so proud to know he made a difference for someone like you. Thank you for keeping his legacy alive." Sarah folded the letter neatly and placed it under her pillow. It was the last thing she read before bed every night for weeks. In WWE headquarters, the tribute wasn't taken lightly. They began brainstorming how to memorialize Hulk Hogan in a way that would match the heart of Sarah's message, not a statue, not just a Hall of Fame video package, but something deeper. Something that would make other kids feel what Sarah felt. And so, a year later, on what would have been Hulk Hogan's 72nd birthday, WWE unveiled the Hulk Hogan Courage Center, a facility dedicated to helping children battling illness and adversity through the power of performance, storytelling, and community. And at the ribbon cutting, standing nervously but proudly in front of the cameras, was Sarah. Her hair a little longer. Her eyes still wide. Wearing the same yellow feather boa she wore the day she said goodbye. She wasn't scared anymore. Because of Hulk Hogan, she told the crowd, "I know how to be strong. And I want to help other kids feel that too." The applause was thunderous. But Sarah didn't need it. She just needed to be heard. And in that moment, she was. For many, the image of Hulk Hogan flexing in the ring will always be the one burned into memory. For others, it's his walk down the ramp at WrestleMania, the red and yellow blazing under the lights. But for those who witnessed Sarah's tribute, the most unforgettable image of Hulk Hogan won't be of him at all. It will be of a little girl, 7 years old, standing on a flower planter, whispering thank you to a legend. Because in her voice, you could hear every fan who ever needed a hero. And in her tears, you could see the reason Hulkamania was never just a marketing gimmick, it was a belief. A belief that no matter how hard life hits you, no matter how many times you get knocked down, you get back up. You rip your shirt. You flex. You smile. And you fight again. That's what Sarah learned. That's what Hulk Hogan gave her. And through her, he gave it to all of us, one final time. Sarah's story soon became more than just a moment, it became a symbol. In classrooms across the U.S., teachers began referencing her tribute when talking about courage. Wrestling podcasts named her the Heart of Hulkamania. Fan letters flooded her home. Some were from adults who had grown up during Hogan's heyday. Others came from kids just like her, who hadn't known much about wrestling but had been moved to tears by her words. They wrote things like, "You made me cry," or "Now I want to be brave like you." One letter stood out. It came from an 8-year-old boy in San Diego named Elijah. He had just finished chemotherapy. In shaky handwriting, he wrote, "I saw your video. I was scared in the hospital, but I pretended Hulk Hogan was next to me. I think you're brave like him." Sarah read the letter 5 times. Then she hugged it close to her chest and whispered, "Thank you." She didn't know it, but her tribute had created something bigger than herself. It had resurrected something lost, something wrestling fans hadn't felt in years. Pure-hearted belief. Hulk Hogan had been a controversial figure in his later years. Headlines had battered his name. Some fans distanced themselves. Others remained loyal. But none could deny the mark he left on the sport. And now, through Sarah, people remembered why they loved him in the first place, not as a businessman, not as a media figure, but as a hero who showed us how to fight when the odds were stacked high. And the impact didn't stop there. A grassroots fan movement started online called Little Hulksters United. Parents posted photos of their children in Hogan shirts, feather boas, and handlebar mustaches drawn on with markers. Some recreated old poses. Others posted tribute videos, thanking Hogan for helping my dad or being the reason I believe in myself. What was once nostalgia became a revival. A spiritual return to when wrestling was larger than life, and heroes meant something more than just wins and losses. WWE took note. Soon, a special edition of Monday Night Raw aired, Hulk Hogan, Forever Immortal, featuring superstars past and present sharing their own memories. But the most unexpected segment came at the very end. Not a match. Not a montage. A spotlight on a small ring in the middle of the crowd. And in that ring stood Sarah, holding the same card she'd made, now laminated and framed. She didn't speak. She just held it up. And for a full minute, the entire arena stood in silence. No chants. No music. Just tears. Just reverence. It was in that silence that something else happened. Something that caught the world by surprise. The lights dimmed. A pre-recorded message began to play. It wasn't from a wrestler. It wasn't from a commentator. It was from Hulk Hogan himself, recorded a year before, as part of a then-shelved WWE Legacy project. The footage showed him, older, but with the same fire in his eyes. "If you're watching this," he said, "then the big man upstairs has finally called me in. And that's alright, brother. I had my run. But let me tell you something. If there's one thing I want the world to remember, it's this: never stop fighting. Never stop believing. Because somewhere out there, there's a little Hulkamaniac with a heart of gold. And she's gonna carry the torch for all of us." The screen faded to black. The crowd erupted. And in the center of it all stood Sarah. She didn't understand the full weight of the moment yet. Not entirely. But she felt it. Like a rush of electricity up her spine. Like Hogan himself had just handed her something invisible and sacred. A legacy. In the following weeks, Sarah and her father were invited onto talk shows, podcasts, even a late-night segment on The Tonight Show. But the most meaningful moment came during a quiet morning interview with a small wrestling magazine called The Grapple. When asked why she loved Hulk Hogan so much, Sarah thought for a long time. Then she said, "Because he made me feel like I wasn't small. Like I could be loud. Like I could win, even if I was scared." That quote was printed in bold across the cover, "Like I could win, even if I was scared." It became the new motto for the Hulk Hogan Foundation. A foundation that, inspired by Sarah's tribute, began launching programs in underserved schools and hospitals, using pro wrestling as a platform to teach self-esteem, courage, and resilience. Not through violence or aggression, but through storytelling, confidence, and the courage to stand up when life knocks you down. Sarah's voice, once trembling in a funeral parking lot, was now shaping the future of youth empowerment in the name of a wrestling legend. She was invited to tour the WWE Performance Center. She met with superstars like John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and Bianca Belair. Each one told her the same thing. "We saw what you did. And we'll never forget it." When she walked through the training facility, she looked around at the aspiring wrestlers, men and women 2, 3, 4 times her age, and whispered to her dad, "Do you think I could do this someday?" He smiled. "If you want to, kiddo. You've already done the hardest part." And in her eyes, something flickered. A dream. Not of fame. Not of spotlight. But of honor. Months later, Sarah began taking wrestling classes, not as a stunt or PR campaign, but because she loved it. She trained hard. Took bumps. Learned the ropes. She was determined. Focused. And each time she stepped into the ring, she wore a tiny yellow bandana tucked eye.